Here are my wide receiver rankings for week 3, full exclusively for Autograph. Let's start at the top. A lot of people really do not like Ja'Marr Chase at 1, but let me just say this. He threw a tantrum last year, remember, with a week before the Cardinals game, and then he had 50 fantasy points, 52 fantasy points, the most in a single game of any player last season. I expect him to do something similar against Washington, one of the worst defenses in football. Malik Nabers just went crazy against them, 28 plus fantasy points. Ja'Marr Chase, is the realm of 55 isn't out of question. I think he gets 30 plus for sure, and I'm expecting a 3-touchdown game from him, maybe 40 fantasy points if he can get the 200-yard marker. I know I spelled Zay Flowers wrong there. Autocorrect, man. It should have autocorrected. I don't know why it didn't do that, but we'll get that in a second. Justin Jefferson at 2, he's matchup proof. If he did it against San Francisco, he's going to do it against Houston. Same defense. D'Amico was the defensive coordinator for the 49ers. He's implemented that same system there. Amon-Ra St. Brown against Arizona. If he plays, of course, this is if Jefferson and if Amon-Ra play, I really like their matchup. Nico Collins has to be respected. He's a top 5 receiver from now on. This is a guy who's going up against Minnesota, and you can exploit Minnesota's secondary. You just can't exploit their defensive line right now. Their defensive line is going crazy. Secondary has played well, but a player like Collins is really matchup proof. It's time we talk about Rashee Rice being a superstar. He's the Chiefs' top option right now, over Travis Kelce, over everybody. He's their top guy. Against Atlanta, I know they have a tough secondary, but I expect him to get boatload of targets and still finish top 5. Marvin Harrison Jr., I expect to build off of that week. Detroit, you can exploit their secondary as well. That's their weakness. I expect Kyler to do so, throw the ball downfield. I love CeeDee Lamb if he plays against Baltimore, but he's down to 7 because I think out of these guys, I would be worried a little bit about him. And Dallas in general, I know Baltimore, they haven't looked great, but their defenses look pretty good. I know Gardner Minshew kind of cooked them in the second half, but I expect them to have a much more balanced game at home. I don't think Dallas does much, and that's why CD I have falling to 7, which is probably the most unpopular opinion on this list. DK Metcalf should go off against Miami. Chris Olave against Philadelphia. I think they've been doubling him. They've gotten Shaheed has been open. I think it goes back. It reverts to the mean or the norm or whatever you want to call it. Olave should get a touchdown and 100 yards or close to it this week. Brandon Ayuk is going to go off against the Los Angeles Rams. He's really the only receiver with Juwan Jennings for the 49ers. Both are solid plays. Juwan Jennings is also a solid flex option this week. Tyreek Hill, it's always boom bust. Can Skylar Thompson get him the ball in space? Probably not, which is why it falls to 12. Garrett Wilson against New England tonight, Thursday Night Football. Like the matchup, I think he gets a touchdown, but I think only 50 yards. Zay Flowers, again, autocorrect didn't help me out here. Versus Dallas, I mean, he's the only guy. I think he leads on a per-game basis in targets among receivers, so I like him. Chris Godwin, I love against Denver because I think Pat Surtain's on Mike Evans in man coverage. Drake London versus KC, I like it. Malik Nabers versus Cleveland, toughest matchup of the year for Malik Nabers. I think he struggles a little bit. I don't think Daniel Jones can get him the ball against that defense. That's why he's down to 17, but I still expect like maybe 40 yards and a touchdown. DJ Moore against Indianapolis. If it's any game to do it, to break out Caleb Williams, this is the game to do it. Indianapolis has been cooked on defense. They made Malik Willis look serviceable. That's how bad their defense has been this season. Jackson Smith and Jigba, his 14 targets last week. Him and DK are both top 20 receivers the rest of the way. He's going up against Miami. Mike Evans versus Denver. He's still Mike Evans, so I had to put him top 20, although it's a brutal matchup. DK had 3 catches for 29 yards a few weeks ago. I expect Evans to have a dud of a game. I really do, but I still had to put him out of respect for who he is in the top 20. Then we got 21, Jameson Williams versus Arizona. I love Jameson Williams this week. This is a really good matchup. Stephon Diggs at 22, Amari Cooper 23, Calvin Ridley 24, Jaden Reed 25, Brian Thomas 26. I like all those guys. The big sleeper here is Khalil Shakir, 27. Really love that matchup there. Rashid Shaheed at 28. I think he has a little bit of a step back, but I still like him. At 29, George Pickens. I hate this matchup, but again, he's a wide receiver 1, so he has to be top 30. And this one's going to surprise people. Jordan Whittington, not Tyler Johnson, not DeMarcus Robinson. I think Jordan Whittington is the guy that reaches the 100-yard marker versus the 49ers. Their secondary has been exploited. Their run defense was horrible last week. I expect them to make adjustments, but not enough to completely shut down the Rams. Sean McVay still can call great plays. I do expect Whittington to have a great game. So let me know what you guys think in the comments, and make sure every Thursday you check out on Autograph my rankings in the fantasy football section.